Hello everybody, welcome to your first Blender 3D modeling tutorial for Kentwood's 3D modeling class. I am your host, Mr. Rizzo, and this is the first tutorial that you're going to be going through as a part of this class. See, I like to make tutorials to teach Blender because, as you can tell, it's a bit complicated to use Blender, at least at first. It feels like there's just so many buttons, they're all hidden everywhere. And, I make these tutorials as a resource to you so you could kind of play back and see exactly what I'm clicking and, how I'm creating what I'm creating. So I make this for you to just so it's just more helpful for you to learn. Right now, we are looking at a bunch of squishies. That's right. So these are the first project in K3D is to make a squishy. And a squishy is this little character, that you can customize. You're going to be adding props. You can, give it some wings. You can draw on it. I'm showing you a bunch of examples that we've done in the past. And in the end, after you make your squishy, we're going to put them all together into a class photo and take a picture. So it's going to be pretty fun. Let's dive right into the modeling tutorial. We'll start it real slow, nice and easy, just so you can follow along and make a squishy and be a part of this fun project. Let's dive right in. Okay, welcome to Blender, your first tutorial. Okay, so a little bit of a tour around Blender. First off, welcome. This is a 3D software. I am holding the middle click mouse. So the middle click, that's clicking the scroll wheel. The first thing you're going to do when you walk into Blender, you might not know how to move around. Well, first off, middle click to orbit. Shift. If you hold shift and middle click at the same time, and middle click, that's the click on the scroll wheel. So that's that little scrolly wheel. If you are working on something that doesn't have a scroll wheel, well, we can go in and change some of the preferences. So if you go to Edit, Preferences, and go to, I believe it is Input. There is an Emulate 3 button mouse. That will help you a lot if you do not have a middle click on your mouse. Emulate 3 button mouse. That'll be really helpful. So, some other things while we're here. If you're having trouble seeing, if the text is too small when you're working in Blender, you can change the resolution scale. So right now, as a default, mine has been set to 1, which everything is pretty small. For the sake of this, I wanted to set this to 1.2. You can set this to whatever size you want, whatever is good for you. If you go to Themes, you can actually change the color of your Blender. So you can change it to Blender Light, Deep Gray, Maya, which is a different type of 3D program, Minimal Dark, Modo, Print Friendly, and White, which is very hard to see, XSI, all these different ways. So basically, you can actually change the color of anything. You can also install presets. So if you find a good preset online to download that you like, you can install it there. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So real fast, all the hotkeys that I press, you can see them on the left here. I have a plugin that every single time I click the keyboard, you will see exactly what I hit. So if I click on this cube and hit G, that's to grab. S is to scale. R is to rotate. Let me just get everything back to where it is. I hit Control Z to undo. These are all things that are very important. Right here, we have a cube in our scene, and we have a light. If I hit period on the numpad period, that locks, that focuses on whatever we have selected. So if I hit numpad period, focuses on the cube. If you ever get lost, if like, oh my gosh, everything is gone, where did everything go? All you have to do is hit A, selects everything. A is to select all, and then numpad period. And then bam, you're snapped back to where you were. So, so I usually have these screencast keys just as a resource for you. Okay, let's start making a squishy. So I'm going to start by deleting everything. I'm going to hit A, and then I'm going to hit delete. There's a delete key on your keyboard. You can also right click and hit delete. I usually like just hitting the delete key. When we are modeling something, in this case, we're going to be modeling a squishy, and a squishy is an octopus. When we are modeling our character, it's very helpful to look at its primary shape. In this case of the squishy, its primary shape is a circle. It's very circular squishy. It's like a little octopus, little cute little plushy octopus. So we're gonna start out with a sphere or a ball, almost shaped like a golf ball. So we're gonna go up to the top left here, and we're gonna go to Add Mesh UV Sphere. Boop. And bam, we got a sphere. Okay, so before we do anything, go down to the bottom here where it says Add UV Sphere. Click on this little triangle menu. And you'll see that there's the segments, rings, radius. This all controls what the sphere looks like. Notice how if I click and drag, it changes the resolution of the sphere. Look at that. We are going to prep for our squishy, we are going to put in 16 segments and then 10 rings. And then that should be perfect for our squishy. Now that we've set up our sphere, I want to start shaping the body proportions of our squishy. Right now, it just looks like a ball. Let's maybe shape it a little bit. To kind of adjust the shape of our sphere, we need to go into edit mode. It's where you edit an object, and it's right up here. It's object mode, click on it, go to edit mode. If you want to go the fast way, you can just hit tab. Tab. Ba, 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 ba. Ha, ba, ba. All right, we are in edit mode, and immediately we see all these dots. And if we can click on them, each one of them is a vertice. A vertice is like a control point. It's kind of like the points in which shapes can be controlled by. And each one of these lines between the dots is an edge. And each one of the space between the vertices and the edges is called a face. And you can select each one of those by clicking on vertex mode, edge mode, or face select mode. So if you want to select a line, just select edge selection mode. So I can hit G, and look at that. I can move an entire line. I'm gonna hit Control Z to undo this. And you can do the same thing with any vertice. So I'm gonna hit G, I can move it out, and now it's super duper spiky. I don't want that, that sounds dangerous. So I'm gonna hit Control Z, and now we're back. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to switch to face selection mode. I'm gonna hit A, which selects everything, and I'm gonna hit R. So remember, R is to rotate. And I'm going to rotate on the Z axis. So X, Y, and Z. X goes this way, Y goes this way, and Z goes up and down. And you can see that visualized by this little, gizmo thing right here. Cool. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is hit R, Z, and we're gonna type in 11.25. Hey, so real fast here, I just want to show you what I just did. If you hit R, and then, typically it just kind of rotates it like this. Well, most of the time you're going to want a little bit more control than that. Let's see if I hit RZ, it rotates it on the Z axis. So imagine there's a giant pole or giant thing rotating it perfectly around like this. RZ, it rotates it on the Z axis. Imagine that being this imaginary line. Well, I can also rotate it on the x-axis, which is that red line, R, X, and now, oh yes, it's doing backflips. Let's make it do a barrel roll with R, Y. Yeah, so RY rotates on the Y axis. And what we just did is do R, Z, and then we can type in a number. So remember, everything is measured in degrees. 360, if you do a 360, that's one rotation. But if you do a 180, okay, now the monkey's turning around. And you can actually just do that. If you just hit R, Z, 180, it rotates it 180 degrees just by hitting R, Z, 180. And you do R, Z, 90, R, Z, 45. And it just lets you, get it to rotate as a lot faster than, having to do that by hand. R, Z, 45. And now we're back around. So you can combine R for rotate, Z for, what axis is it supposed to be rotating around, and then a number like, I don't know, 345,345 degrees. Yeah, it just rotated a lot. That's okay. RZ90. Yeah, so that's how you do it. That's what I'm doing. That's what I just did. Just with a very small amount, only 11.25 degrees. Anyways, back to the show. Nice. So we rotated our ball. The next thing we're going to do is start to shape the body proportions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start shaping it from the bottom at first. And I can select faces like this by clicking on each face. I can also hold Shift and select each face. That kind of takes a bit of time. So there's also, if I click and hold on here, there's a select circle. And now I can select multiple faces at once. Remember, holding Shift lets you select multiple faces or objects at once. I can also hit Control to unselect objects. So that's really helpful. Okay, let's start shaping the proportion of this squishy. So we're going to start by selecting the bottom faces. We're going to be in edit mode. So as you can see, if I try to hit S, it'll only scale in these faces. So if we try to spend all the time trying to change the body proportion by just shift selecting each one of these faces, it could take a really long time. Well, there's this cool thing called proportional editing. If I click on this, now try S. Check out that. It starts to control the faces next to the faces. And there, if you scroll with your scroll wheel, it will actually change the fall off. It'll change the radius in which it affects this. So I'm just, all I did was hit S, and then I start moving my mouse around. And then I just scroll the scroll wheel. So we're going to start by hitting S, then Z, and then we're going to kind of flatten out the bottom of our squishy. Not by too much. So flatten out the bottom. Nice. Then we're going to go to this tool right here called the scale tool. And then you'll see these little icons pop up. We are going to be selecting this blue scale, like plane thing here. See that little blue square? It's right there. We're going to click on this. Actually, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And we're going to scale in the bottom of it. So then it's a little bit bigger at the top than at the bottom. Yeah, maybe a little bit less. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. We're trying to go for that gumdrop feeling. Let's see, like this. Yeah, so I'm just like, I'm using soft select and scrolling my scroll wheel to kind of get a nice looking shape for my character. Like that. So basically, we're trying to flatten out the bottom of it while still getting a good looking shape. And you can kind of play around with how you want, your body shape of your squishy to be. Let's try maybe like that. Nice. Okay. I'm going to also flatten out the top as well because I'm just looking at it and I'm just like, remember I press and hold to get that. SZ, that looks nice. SC, I'm just gonna kind of play around here. And to turn this off, all we have to do is click this. And now if I hit G, it will be back to normal. If it was on, it would do something like this. So I'm just gonna turn it off. Okay, so I like the body shape of my squishy. Let's add some tentacles. Okay, let's add some tentacles. So we're gonna start by selecting the fourth face from the bottom. So this is the bottom. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're gonna select every other face on the bottom of this squishy. So boop, that's one, holding shift, selecting, middle clicking to kind of orbit around. Okay, now that we have all of these faces selected, we are going to turn these into tentacles. Before we turn these into tentacles, we're going to want to make sure a setting is enabled. So up here, there's this transform pivot point. If those words don't make any sense, they will in a second. If you click on this, we're going to want to set this to individual origins. Okay, so now that we have all the faces selected and individual origins enabled, we can right click and we're going to hit extrude along normal. So check this out. Check out that. So we're able to create geometry off of these faces, and it's called an extrusion. Basically, it takes each one of these faces and extrudes off of it and creates more geometry in the process. This is how a lot of things are modeled. With all these faces selected, I'm going to hit S, and then I'm going to scale these down. And check that out. It scales down each one individually. That's why we set up individual origins in the beginning. So each one scales down individually, within themselves. If we didn't have this selected, they would all scale towards the middle, and that looks not that great. So we got to make sure this is set to individual origins. So I'm going to extrude again and scale this up. Scaling this up, extrude again, maybe make it scale it up. And this is where you can kind of, take your own artistic taste on how you want to make the little tentacles. Scale them down, scale them down, scale them down. Nice, maybe scale this one down sooner. Extrude along normal, scale this down. Nice. And if you want to maybe make the shape a little bit more, if you want to massage it a little bit more, you can go change from global to normal, I believe. And then yes, okay. Okay, Mr. Rizzo from the future here to talk about what I just did there. So we've been set, there's this thing called transform orientations. Listen, I know this is the first project and this might be a lot, but just bear with me for a second. Usually we're on global. So global just means, so do you see this thing? It says X, Y, Z. We introduced that, okay, that red line is X, move that GX, it moves along this, GY goes along this, and then GZ goes up and down. But did you ever think about, up and down is relative to wherever the ground is. So like if you're in Antarctica and you are pointing up, that's going to be a completely different up from, North Dakota. If you just look, point up at the sky in North Dakota versus pointing up in the sky in Antarctica, going completely different directions. That's what I'm talking about here. So if we go to normal, what that does is it's like, imagine this face. So if I move this along the normal axis, so if I just say GZ, which is usually up, right? GZ is, typically, going up or down, but then up or down, if let's say we were standing, right here, if we pointed up would go this way, up would come off the face. And that's actually the direction of the normal. And normal is just kind of a fancy word for, each face has kind of a different normal direction. So this one, the normal's like this. So that's the normal right there. This one is like this. So each one has kind of a different normal direction. I know this is a lot on the first project. The normal on this one is right here. And look at that. So that means if I extrude along normals, it'll go up that way. But if I go right here and extrude along normals, it goes up that way. It basically decides which way is up, and that affects the direction we can control it. So extrude along normals, yeah. So it's just really helpful for doing this stuff. Yeah. Anyways, back to the show. A little bit more and maybe smooth this out a little bit. S. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna hit S. I'm turn off proportional editing, and then kind of move this in a little bit. So it's just kind of a rounded edge. By the way, if you ever like are clicking a lot of things, a hotkey that you're really like is Control. I believe it's Control Shift Plus. No, it's Control Plus. Yes. Okay. So if you just select if you just select the tip of all of the tentacles and just hit Control Plus, check out that. It expands out. That's so much easier than selecting everything individually. It'll save you so much time. Look at that. We're able to just I'm hitting G and then Z, and I'm able to kind of massage, put these tentacles into a nice looking spot. Nice. Okay. So, I'm going to change a few things here because I think this GZ, maybe it needs a little bit extra. No, let's see. I'm just kind of playing around with this at this point. And this is where you can feel free to kind of play around a little bit. But I like it. Maybe the tentacles are looking a little too big. I'm at SX, and then I'm just going to kind of make them thinner. Nice. Okay, so now we're going to smooth this out, by the way. So it might look like this, shade flat. We'll make this smooth in a second. Let's add some gills. This will be the front right here. So I'm going to go ahead and add some gills like so. I think it's the fourth face from the top. Yeah, so I'm gonna select these faces right here and these faces right here. And we're gonna extrude these out to make some gills. We're gonna hit E to extrude. We're gonna scale them down and then extrude again. Scale, let's see. It's always tough to kind of get a sense of it, but that's why you hit Control Z. Control Z will be your best friend. E to extrude, scale this in, GZ. Remember, GZ is moving things up or down. I have both of these selected. I'm going to hit E and then scale them up. E, scale it up, and then kind of start to kind of round it out. I just keep on hitting E and then S. E, then S. E, then S. GZ. E, then S. And then we have a nice little antenna, and it looks cute. If the antennas still feel pretty blocky, which they do, I'm going to select all the faces on the antenna and hit Control plus. Control plus does do 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 do. Now see how great that hotkey is? Yeah, Blenders are learning a lot of hotkeys. And then I'm going to use this tool on the left here called the Smooth tool. And I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to just drag to the right. So when I click on the Smooth tool, and then I have everything selected, I have what I want to smooth. All I got to do is click on this little icon, and then drag to the right. Look at that. That looks a lot smoother. That looks nice. I could do the same thing for the tentacles. So I'm gonna select all the tentacles, just the one at the very bottom of each. I'll use that same, hold on, I accidentally did the wrong thing. Hit Control to unselect something, Shift click. So I'm just shift clicking, and then I'm gonna hit Control plus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm gonna smooth all this out.
By using the Smooth tool. Very useful, that Smooth tool. Now it's a little too smooth. Maybe not, just a little bit. Okay. That's looking great.
Okay, now that we have the general shape of the squishy, I usually right click and hit Shade Smooth, and now it's all kind of a little bit smooth. We are going to give it a color. That's right. So we're going to go down here to the shader material properties, this little checker ball, click on it, and we're going to hit New. And then you're like base color. Well, right here, this is how we just assigned a shader, which is just a thing that tells it what color it is, to our squishy. We can make this color any color we want. I'm going to make mine green, but it's still showing up gray. Well, we need to go to the shading preview mode to see our shaders. Boom, there you go. And we can change to any color we want, red, blue, green, anything. I'm gonna go green. So that's it. The next part is you're gonna wanna model some basic primitives. So give it a face. You know, I usually do add mesh sphere or add mesh something and try to model some more things to kind of give it some eyes. I'm gonna give this one some black. Maybe I go into front view and I just kind of like Shift D to duplicate. Also, remember to save. I'm realizing I haven't saved yet. I'm gonna hit File, Save. I'm gonna save my file. Let's call this Rizzo Squishy. And then I'm going to just kind of make this. To make a happy face, I'm going to create actually, let's use a curve. I'll show you how to use a curve real fast. Bezier curve. And I'm just going to move this out with GX. I'm going to go into edit mode of the curve by going from object mode to edit mode. And a curve object is really cool because it's a little bit different than a mesh, because if I go, I just made a smile by clicking on these tangents. I could just kind of click like this and click on these lines. And now I made this smile by just clicking on stuff like this, hitting, G. Actually, wait, I need to switch this back to global. GY, and now it's back to normal. Because remember, I want to be back in global space instead of normal space. I can click on these two, and then I go over to the curve settings, and then scroll down and look for bevel. I'm going to then change the depth. And check that out. We make a smile. I'm also going to give it a shader. We're going to make it black. And now I have a black little smiley face. I'm going to rotate it I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis, negative 90 degrees, negative 90, RZ. So I'm just using R and then Z and then rotating it into place. And this is where the creativity begins. This is where I think you just gotta have fun, you know. Kind of move this into place. Ask any questions you want. If I go into edit mode of this curve, you can straighten out this smile a little bit. Just using GX to kind of place this into place. Okay, so now that we've made all of our parts for Squishy, you can have a lot of fun with the facial expression or making the face. I'm going to merge them all into one object. So right now you can see I'm clicking each individual object that I made, and I'm going to merge them all into one. I'm going to go ahead and do that by hitting Shift and then selecting everything. The curve, I'm going to have to do something different, but I'm going to hit, I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit join right here. Or you can hit Control J. Just one of those things you're going to end up remembering. For the curve to get merged into the body, we're going to have to convert it into an object. We do that by going to Object, Convert, Convert to Mesh. And now we can say Shift select that, and hit Control J. And now if I just click on the squishy, it will all move together. Sweet. And now that you've made your squishy, the next part of this is you got to make some props for the squishy. Give it some personality. You know, make it something else. Give the squishy something to make it pretty fun. This is kind of like, you know, your first profile or your avatar of the class. So make sure to have fun with it. I can make a quick top hat by you adding a cylinder, squishing it with SZ, scaling this down, going into edit mode. And edit mode is where I can do some modeling. I'm going to hit I to inset a face. That's a fun one to learn. And then E to extrude the face. And then I'm going to add a loop cut, which adds more geometry to my hat. And then what I can do is I'm going to give this thing a texture. I'm going to go give it a black texture by going over to the texture panel, hitting new, and then making a black texture. And then I'm going to select all these faces, holding Shift. And selecting all the faces I want to make, I'm going to make this white. And because you can actually color individual areas if you select the faces. So I'm just going to select them like this. Boop, 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 boop. And then I'm going to make a new texture by hitting the plus button here. New texture. Make it white, and I'm going to hit assign. And now I've assigned a texture to the faces in edit mode. You have to remember, you have to be in edit mode. Remember, edit mode is where you actually edit the geometry. Object mode is where you move it around. And now we have a distinguished squishy. I can right click shade smooth and it's going to look a lot better. Okay, so now that I've finished my squishy, you can add more props, you can add more things. Just give it a prop, give it a smile, and give it a, give it whatever you want to add to it. We are actually going to label our models. So right now, this is, if we look up to here, this is the outliner, or, it shows you everything in the scene. Right now our squishy is called a sphere, and then our hat is called a cylinder. That's probably because we used a cylinder to make our hat, but let's just double click on this and call this top hat. And then we're gonna call this squishy. And then we're going to double click on the collection and you're going to write your name. So I'm going to say Mr. Rizzo Squishy. And you're going to want to make sure you have your name on the folder. This will help me when I'm making the group photo. So you're going to want to make sure you label your Squishy. So I know who's who. Anyways, give it a hat, make some props, have fun with it. Thanks for hanging out with me. I know this was kind of a long first tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here.